Hello Internet, it is Alex from Barefaced and I'm here for another video about some technical things. And today I'm going to talk to you about port area, because this is something a few people have asked about and I imagine it's the cause of quite a lot of puzzlement. So, ports have length, ports have area. I will show you a cab here, which is empty. Space for a 12 and another 12 there. So 12XN, this is our super twin. And you can see this long slot port up the side of it. First things first about ports. The shape doesn't matter much. There are effects to do with fluid flow, because this is what we're talking about with a port. But the shape is not really a big deal. It's the area that is the thing that really matters. So in the case of any ported loudspeaker, we are dealing with air moving in and out of these ports. Now, to be very clear, it's not a question of the speaker moving back and squishing the air in the box and the air then escaping from the ports. That isn't what happens. If that happened, then the output from the ports would cancel the output from the speaker. And that is what happens once you're well below the tuning frequency, that you literally have squish there, blow there, and they cancel and, you know, sort of suck there, which causes compression on the outside, and suck there, and again cancels. But once you're near the port tuning frequency and above the port tuning frequency, that doesn't happen. Now, speakers move backwards and forward to create sound. Everyone knows that, I think. No, actually they probably don't. People think magic just comes out of them. Well, the way speakers make sound is they move backwards and forwards and generate compression and rarefaction, so vibrations in the air, which then travel out and go into our ears and make our eardrums do basically the same thing. This is a damaged guitar speaker, but what's damaged about it is that split there, and I don't know what happened to this. Anyway, I found it kicking around here, and what I want to show you is how little a guitar speaker actually moves. And let's get close in. Can you see? Let's try pushing it like this. They don't like moving. There's not a lot of movement in a guitar speaker, so it's a very, very low excursion speaker. Guitar speakers do move, and you can see when I push on it. See the cone, actually that's the other side I need to show you. The cone is very thin, very flexible. The way a speaker works is in here. Here's your magnet, and basically the magnet sends field this way. That's the south side of the magnet, say, and that goes up into the middle. So you've got this back plate that goes up into the middle, and then the other side of the magnet goes into this, which is the top plate. So you end up with basically a magnetic field going from the center to the outside. So you've got, say, south in the middle, north on the outside, and then the voice coil sits in a gap in here. So there's a gap in here, and the voice coil is attached in here. See if we can get an angle on that that lights it properly. Come on. No, it doesn't want to show. But anyway, this bit then pushes the cone up and down, and the cone, I can get, need different lighting for this. But anyway, the cone is attached at the back here and attached at this edge here. And on a guitar speaker, the assembly at the back here, this spider here, has very little movement, and this has very little movement. They're both very stiff. The cone is light and quite flexible, so the energy comes from the voice coil, makes the cone vibrate, but it doesn't move very far. This is why guitar speakers are really rubbish at doing true low frequencies. I know guitar speakers can sound chunky when you're palm muting and chugging away, particularly if you've got lots of those speakers, particularly if you scoop your EQ, you know, and you're sort of Mesa Boogie or Randall, you know, going full on metal. But they don't move a lot. Now that means that the air, if you put a port in a guitar speaker cabinet, doesn't have to move very much. Now I've got another 10-inch speaker here. This is our 10CR250, so this is the custom 10 which we designed with Eminence, and it's a really unusual speaker. Now bass guitar speakers and any speakers that do lows do move more than guitar speakers because they need to produce lows, but most don't move like this. This is an extreme case, and this is why our cabs have so much output. So if you see this, it easily moves that much, and actually it will move further than that. This can pump a lot of air, so there we go, that charging up and down, versus this. So if we have a speaker cabinet with speakers that can move this far and we make it a ported speaker cabinet, the port needs to be able to move a lot of air. Now our 12-inch speaker, which I didn't have one to hand, moves even further than this speaker. So when you have two of those 12s in a cab like this, pumping in and out a long way, the port air needs to move a long way. So it's all about swept volume. The swept volume being the area multiplied by the distance this moves. The swept volume from this speaker is not a lot. The swept volume from this speaker is a lot. The swept volume from our 12 is about double the swept volume of this because it's 2 inches bigger in nominal diameter, which actually makes it more than 2 inches bigger in operating diameter, bizarrely, because you're losing less to kind of the surround and things like that, but it also moves further. So we're now going to get into one of my favourite things from engineering, which is fluid mechanics. Basically, if you have a fluid, it will move in a laminar way. So that's when the fluid sort of flows in a tidy, smooth way. And that's when it's flowing well below the Reynolds number. The Reynolds number is related to viscosity and other things like that. Once your fluid starts moving faster, it then starts to become turbulent flow. So laminar flow is where our fluid, the air in this, is moving in and out. Because remember, it's not just blowing out, it's very much a vibrating mass of air. So it's doing this, fluttering at around the tuning frequency and below, depending on the sound you're putting into it. When it's laminar flow, you're not hearing it in terms of the actual airflow, you're just hearing the sound of those low frequencies. Once you get into turbulent flow, you start to hear noise. You literally start to hear wind noise, chuffing, and things like that. Now, on a loud gig, yeah, you're not going to hear that chuffing. It's a big deal with hi-fi speakers. You do not want a hi-fi speaker where you hear the kick drum go sort of on top of the music because you've turned it up too loud and you're into the chuffing zone. You're not really going to hear that a lot with bass guitar. You might, and you know, we don't want it. It's not a good thing to have. But what does happen is increased losses. So as the speaker is moving more, so as you turn up louder and louder or ask for more lows, particularly the deeper lows, once you're getting down to more air moving by the port rather than the speakers themselves, you will end up with turbulent flow, and that is causing losses here. So instead of getting the output you're expecting, you actually get less lows. So you're getting compression in the lower frequencies, and it's a lossy kind of compression. And then the cab's starting to behave differently to how the cab is designed to behave. So the frequency response is changing as you turn up. Now, this is something that I believe is one of the reasons why people find barefaced cabs so amazing, the bass cabs, is that when you turn up loud, our cabs keep doing the lows properly. And part of that is because the speakers can move a lot of air, But the other reason is that our ported cabs, so our 12XN cabs, we've designed the ports properly so that as you crank, the port keeps doing what it's meant to do on those big low notes, those big chunky fat notes where you need to vibrate everyone in the room. And that requires a lot of port air movement. What happens when the port area isn't large enough? You start to get drag, you start to get loss, and you start to get a phase shift happening, which means that instead of the output of the cone and the port being in phase and producing additive output at this, so constructive reinforcement at these low frequencies, the drag and the losses here is starting to shift the port behind, shift the port out of phase, and the port stops adding so efficiently to the cone output. And once you head further into that realm, you actually find that the port can end up having so much loss, so much drag, and such a big phase shift that the port starts to cancel the cone. So at that point, your ported cabinet, which should be producing more lows than a sealed cab designed similarly at those low frequencies, is actually producing less bottom end because the port and the speaker are cancelling. And you're almost certain to have heard this on a gig. It will be that moment when you particularly when slapping, but any sort of thumpy, chunky, pulsing, loud, big, low notes. And they don't have to be, I'm not talking down at low B, I'm just talking down notes from probably, let me think, B, 7th fret B on the E string, that's that sort of region. So basically A string-ish and downwards. Those fundamentals, and also when you're on the low B, or if you're going lower into a low F sharp or you've detuned further, not just the fundamental but the first overtone, the second harmonic, you play those big notes and you attack it, and it just sounds like a thin slap instead of sounding, and I'm not talking about slap bass playing, I'm just talking about the sound feeling, instead of it feeling like a hefty, thumpy, weighty punch, like being smashed with I feel when you're playing bass guitar loud and you get that attack, it's like being hit by a sledgehammer that's been wrapped in a pillow. You know, it's a really big, massive thump that really takes you out. And when you have one of those moments where the port has gone out of phase because the port is suffering with too much drag and too much loss, it's really a case of, instead of it feeling like this massive thump, it feels like a sort of thin, it's just a flappy, slappy, a bit like when you hear a kick drum sound that is all click and no thump. It's frustrating. It really, really, really annoys me that when you are, and this does not happen to other instruments, when you play drums loud, I mean, eventually the drums start to choke as they get louder, but they just do what they're meant to do, you know? Different once they're going through a PA and if the PA can't cope. When you play guitar loud, it breaks up in certain ways, but it doesn't kind of dismantle the purpose of the instrument. But when you play bass loud, and you hit that point where the speaker cannot keep up, either because the speaker itself can't move the air or because the port can't move the air, it's like someone's pulled the rug from underneath you. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much. I just want to be able to express myself through the instrument and, you know, drive the bottom end of the band in a way that thunders. And badly designed ports are an utter nightmare for this. They are so frustrating. They just, especially if the cabinet has actually got half decent speakers in there, but whoever's designed it hasn't put the effort into doing the porting correctly, you can end up with a port that's just destroying your tone once you play loud. And you will not discover this in a shop. You will not discover this in a rehearsal room unless your band is really obnoxious and cranks up way, way too loud. And a badly designed port can sound amazing at at low sound pressure levels, low decibels, you know, low power input. But oh God, it's so annoying when you actually want the thing you've spent all this money on to do what it's really meant to do. So that's why port area really matters in bass cabs. It's about having the port do what it's been designed to do according to proper cab design theory, but you've designed it not thinking about small signal level stuff, which is how Thiel's small parameters work. That's small signal level stuff. We're dealing with big signal levels. We're dealing with high amounts of air movements. We're dealing with high potential air velocities. We're dealing with big cubic centimeters or cubic inches of air moving in and out of this port on each pulse of the sound wave. So yeah, that's why it matters so much with a bass cab, but also why with the AVD cab, you know, with these speakers, these guitar speakers that don't move very much at all, why port air velocity and that sort of thing isn't an issue. So I will then get onto that in another video, but that is enough of me ranting about port area. Ask me more questions, because I like questions. I'm appreciating the questions so far, so I'm trying to cover them as I sort of work through the videos. So if you want to know more about why I'm doing this talking at the internet, check out our website, barefacedaudio.com. I'm going to start putting things in the, you know, that there's that bit down there with the, you can click on it and it goes bigger and there are words and stuff in there. So I'll try and start organising things and doing playlists and such like, and links to related products. So yeah, this is a Super Twin. This thing that I'm tossing around in an amusing way because it's so hilariously light, and it gets two very powerful neodymium magnet 12XN speakers. It's 1200 watt bass cab that can happily do what an Ampeg 810 can do, but with sort of more punch and clarity and awesomeness. And you can, you know, when it's, well, actually I can pick it up with one hand when it's got the speakers in and a grill on. These are great. These are really great. So that's a barefaced 2x12XN Super Twin monster of a bass cab. Anyway, thank you. Port area. It matters. It really, really, really matters, and you won't know it until you need it. Sorry, but buy one of our cabs and you don't have to worry about it. Thank you and goodbye.